we have seen some trade rumors go around the NFL, and names like Stephon Gilmore, J.J. Watt, and Will Fuller are coming up constantly. What do you guys think the probability of one of these trades happening is, and which one is more probable?
Yeah. So we've seen, like you said, there's two teams that are really being talked about as big sellers right now, as we're coming up to the trade deadline. And that's the Texans and the Patriots, who have both had quite disappointing seasons. If you guys haven't checked out our fall of the Patriots dynasty video, we have it posted on YouTube, and we talked about it in our recent pod as well. So definitely check that one out. But both of those teams are not performing as well as they thought they would. The Texans, I believe, are 1-6 as of the recording of this. So they're definitely looking at shopping some of their players. I think one of the more interesting packages that we can see is for some of the Patriots star defensive players, mainly Gilmore. But I think that the most likely package would be one for perhaps Will Fuller. What do you guys think?
Will Fuller, I think the team that's being really talked about the most is the Packers in this trade. Which would make sense because I think Aaron Rodgers needs one more weapon to really make this team complete. So for me, I mean, the trade makes sense. I would like to see him maybe go to another team. Like, he's averaging like 15 yards a catch. He's doing really well as a Texas #1 receiver. For me though, the one thing that scares me is his two injuries. I think he has two big ACL injuries that kind of scare me if you're trading for him. So I wouldn't give up too much for him, but you're getting another speedy receiver to an already dangerous offense and a pissed off Aaron Rodgers, so I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the most likely package out of the three. The one I don't get here is J.J. Watt. Now, the reason why I don't get it is, number one, he is what the Houston Texans are. I mean, there is nothing that encapsulates what the Houston Texans are than J.J. Watt himself. Mm-hmm. I know that the whole idea is, there's going to be a contender that's going to throw a lot at him, but what was the straw that broke the camel's back in Houston for Bill O'Brien? It was falling out with J.J. Watt. The buck ends with him at that club. He's earned not only the respect of the front office, but the respect of Houston itself by how much he's given back to that given back to that city, especially after the hurt. So
don't forget.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say, don't forget. At the end of the day, business is business.
I was good. Just to add to Ben's point, the contributions that he made towards the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey was it was amazing. He won Walter Payton Man of the Year. The city loves him. They embraced him as a football player and as a human being. It's more than football here, and I feel like when you say Houston Texans, the first thing that comes to mind is J.J. Watt.
I mean, the only thing with JJ is his contract. I think that's what the big issue is trying to trade, is trying to take on his contract unless you maybe restructure his deal. He doesn't have any guaranteed money, but he is making $15 million this year and $17.5 million next year. So it is going to be a little bit more difficult to trade. With Will Fuller, you can get a third-round pick out of him, and I think any team will take it.
Yeah, I had a few interesting points about Will Fuller I wanted to get to because you guys mentioned the Packers as the prime destination, and I do agree with you. He would fit perfectly with Aaron Rodgers and that prolific passing attack. It's probably one of the best in the NFL to the day. But some other teams that I caught my eye when looking at a receiver with speedy boom potential is the Titans and the Bears. We know the Titans have A.J. Brown. We know the Titans have Corey Davis. They have Jonnu Smith too, who's a really good pass catcher. Yeah. But the thing with the Titans is that their receivers are really injury prone. We've seen already A.J. Brown and Corey Davis missed multiple games this season because of injuries. What be a small one or not really major ones this season, thankfully, but they are getting nicked up constantly.
I don't know if you call COVID an injury concern.
No. But Corey Davis was out with COVID, but then AJ Brown is now being questionable for this next game coming on Sunday, and he's been nicked up, missed a few games throughout the season as well.
Yeah.
So they could use another weapon in the passing attack. I know a deep threat like pairing AJ Brown, who already is a pretty good deep threat, with Will Fuller could be something really special. It's like if Brandon Cooks was AJ Brown in Houston, like how special would that be? It would be pretty amazing. And the other team, the Bears, I'll let you guys take the Titans and the Bears points off of me right after this, but I really feel like the Bears could be a potential suitor for a receiver like Will Fuller. I know Kenny Stills is also out there. Names going around, but the Bears, I wouldn't be surprised. Nick Foles is playing really well. The run game, it's not what it used to be, but it's getting there. They're playing really well. They're winning games, which is really important. So if they want to make that playoff push, especially with the extra wild card slot this year, it's not impossible. So look for the Bears to make a big move.
Yeah, I kind of like the Titans one more than the Bears, just because I feel like the Bears. Nick Foles has honestly shown that for some reason he can do better outside of Philadelphia this year, or he could do decent outside of Philadelphia. I don't think he's necessarily. I don't think it's really going to necessarily translate to them making the playoffs this year because, I mean, their division is them and the Packers at the moment, and the Packers look like they're probably going to win the division. So
I was saying that they could potentially sneak into the wild card because now there is an extra team. There are 7 teams that makes the playoffs rather than the usual 6.
Yeah, I mean that makes it a bit easier, but I don't know. The NFC I feel like has a better teams that could make the wild card over the Bears right now. But I mean listen, you pair him with Allen Robinson and a decent run game with Tariq Cohen.
Tariq Cohen's out with injury right now. It's David Montgomery.
My bad. Yeah. With Montgomery, who's been decent, like that's pretty good. The Titans I like better with those 2 teams that you brought up, because being alongside AJ Brown, that's just another speedy wide receiver. I think it's also what we're gonna see happen in Houston is that, I mean, now you have especially if they get rid of Kenny Stills, like their 2 wide receivers are Brandon Cooks and what's his name, Randall Cobb, who are both slot receivers. It'll be interesting what they'll be left with after I think though if out of the 3 teams that we mentioned, the Packers and the Titans seem more enticing to me than the Bears.
Yeah, I want to add another team into the mix. I like the thought of potentially the Saints being a dark horse team here that comes in and swoops him up last second, because we're talking about teams with one of the 2 teams we were talking about especially has a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, but let's not forget the greatness of Drew Brees. And I know this season he hasn't been exactly looking like himself, but I think he still got it in him to have another big playoff push, and this might be the last season he has in him to make a big playoff push. So you give him another speedy receiver, someone he can just throw it downfield to that'll catch some long bombs whenever they're in trouble. And you add that to a team that already has Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, although there are some locker room issues right now with Michael Thomas and some injury concerns. So as long as they can resolve that, they can add another speedy wide receiver, and that'll be a dangerous team to play. But one other team that I don't think is
wait, Sam, hold on. Before you transition to the next team, I just want to add one point to your Saints. Drew Brees in the past has always found success with a speedy receiver that can go deep and catch the ball. We've seen players like Ted Ginn Jr. find success in New Orleans just because of his ability to
not in Miami, but
New Orleans. No, in New Orleans. In New Orleans.
You need a special quarterback.
No, Ted Ginn Jr. really towards the end of his career really found a resurgence when he went there, and now you can get a player like Will Fuller who's really young and speedy. I feel like he can be a really good fit. That's a good
But
spot, Sam.
first off, just 2 points. New Orleans probably doesn't have the cap to do that. They've always needed to restructure and redo deals are very close to the cap, exceeding their cap. So I don't know if that true. Like, I don't know if they can really take on as much contracts. They might have to either restructure or trade a big contract. And then the other thing is that my issue is that we haven't seen Drew Brees throw the deep ball this year that much. So adding a piece like Will Fuller, who likes to just go on go routes, instead of maybe a
I
guy
think
like Kenny
that's
Stills, who can, catch more towards the middle, that'll be more comfortable for Drew Brees.
I think that's just because Traquan Smith and Emmanuel Sanders really don't pose that much of a deep threat as the players you just named, Kenny Stills and Will Fuller. When it comes down to it, I just feel like Drew Brees is kind of undermanned on offense this season. I know that they have the big running back and the big receiver, but beyond that, like
Does
Taysom
Michael
Hill at
Thomas
tight
play a
end,
game this year?
He played one.
he played week 1. So
He
we
played, like,
still
the first
don't
half
know.
of week 1, right? And then
Yeah.
he got hurt. Yeah.
You could have
So
some-
any other potential teams for Will Fuller before we move on to JJ Watt?
Yeah. I was gonna say the Ravens before the Des Bryant news came out, because if you guys haven't heard, Des Bryant has signed with the Ravens practice squad, and I feel like that is probably a 1 week assignment before he's upgraded to their full roster. So before that, I was thinking the Ravens might want another guy like that on their roster, but I think Des Bryant might fill a kind of similar role, and they're not going to need two of the same guy on their team. What do you guys think of that? Or just simply the Des Bryant move to Baltimore?
I think the Des Bryant move kind of eliminates any major change. I mean, look, they do somewhat need another wide receiver. I could see them looking for another target for Jackson, but I think especially if it does pan out, the Des Bryant move kind of cancels anything out, any major trade for a Will Fuller or Kenny Stills that we could see.
Yeah, I don't think Baltimore needs another receiver right now. I know that Marquise Brown is kind of a similar style of play as these guys. He's just really young, so we don't know his full development yet. But if we're talking about win now mode, which the Ravens are definitely in, Des Bryant could be a really, really good asset to them. So I don't think they're going to look outwards for another like speedy boom potential player, because right now what Lamar Jackson needs is a short passing attack, mid-range passing attack to then open up the run game for him, because it has been a little bit of a trouble this year.